Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Do we have a closed session report?
We do not. Nothing to report out.
Okay. Fire Marshal Masood Argai, would you come forward, please? Good evening, sir. How long have you been our fire marshal?
12 years,
12 years. How
12
long
years.
have you been on the fire department?
35 years, a little over 35, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you, proud to be here.
I just wanted everybody to see who your fire marshal is.
Thank you.
But wait, don't go. We're going to ask you to do a little duty. Would you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Be my pleasure. Okay, as your heart, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Luevanos? Here. Councilmember Kavanaugh?
Here.
Councilmember Judge?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Litster?
Here.
Mayor Mashburn?
Here. Agenda review.
We have one thing for the council. We would like to pull consent item 4 off the agenda. You just need a little bit more time to take a look at the MOU and the implications of it. So we'll bring it back at a future date.
Okay.
I move that all resolutions and ordinances presented tonight be read in title only and all further reading be waived.
Second.
Motion and second. Call for the vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
Declaration of conflict. If any member of the city council may have a conflict of interest or any reasons why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time. Anybody?
Mayor, I would ask that Councilmember Kavanaugh recuse herself from item 9B, since it is her planning commissioner that she appointed. Can legal counsel clarify whether or not that is a conflict of interest?
Say that again.
Can legal counsel verify whether or not it's a conflict of interest?
Okay, thank you.
I think if Councilmember Kavanaugh can be fair and impartial, then I don't see a problem with her participating.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with that, council member?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Anything else on the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, members of the city council, is that it for conflict? Was
Where are
that
we
it for
now?
the declaration of conflict? No, and anyone
Yeah,
else?
we're done there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the city council, the first item on the agenda is item 1D1, presentation of a proclamation declaring November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday, and Kelly Tinker is here to read the proclamation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn, members of the City Council. Tonight I have the privilege of reading the proclamation declaring Small Business Saturday. Whereas the City of Simi Valley celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas 96% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday agree that shopping at small, independently owned businesses supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact. And 97% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday agree that small businesses are essential to their community. And whereas 95% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday report the day makes them want to shop or eat at small, independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas the City of Simi Valley supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. Now, therefore, November 26, 2022 is hereby proclaimed Small Business Saturday to urge residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants throughout the year. Presented this 14th day of November, 2022.
Thank you. I think it goes without saying the importance of our small businesses and the support they receive from this city. So thank you very much for that proclamation.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is 1D2, presentation of a proclamation declaring the month of November 2022 as Native American Heritage Month, and Heidi DiNardo is here to read the proclamation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the first American Indian Day was declared on the second Saturday in September 1916 by the Governor of New York, and whereas it was not until 74 years later in 1990 when President George H.W. Bush approved a joint resolution which formally designated November 1990 as National Native American Heritage Month, and whereas the city recognizes the Simi Valley is built upon the homelands of the Chumash indigenous peoples, and we celebrate their culture and heritage. And whereas the city of Simi Valley is grateful to all Native Americans for their deep care for and love of the land, despite efforts to separate them from it. And whereas the city of Simi Valley celebrates the heritage of Native Americans and celebrates their thriving and resilient cultures, including the Chumash. Whereas the traditions, histories, and influence of Native Americans and their knowledge, spirituality, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and cultural contributions have substantially shaped the character of Simi Valley. Now, therefore, the month of November 2022 is hereby proclaimed Native American Heritage Month in the city of Simi Valley in recognition and celebration of our goodwill and friendship with our local indigenous peoples. Presented this 14th day of November 2022.
Thank you. I think we're in Simi Valley, Ventura County, California, acutely aware of our Native American heritage and very proud of it. And this is a very deserving proclamation to bring up at this time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next item is public statements on appointments, special presentations, and informational reports. Mr. Mayor, we have no speaker cards for this item. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is item 3C1, informational presentation by Youth Council Member Abhishek Jagannathan.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Abhishek Jagannathan, and I'm a junior at Santa Susana High School. This is my 4th term serving on the Simi Valley Youth Council and my first as vice chair. Tonight, I will be providing an update on the Youth Council's last 2 meetings, as well as the upcoming activities that we have in store. During our October 18th meeting, the Youth Council primarily focused on finalizing our work plan for the 2022-2023 term. Based on results from a Google survey and peer discussions with classmates, Youth Council members broke off into smaller groups in order to brainstorm potential solutions to the following issues: mental health, particularly as it relates to social media, discrimination and bullying, as well as substance abuse. Following a larger discussion and group vote, the Youth Council work plan was approved as follows. First, research and advocate for mental health days to be included as school excused absences. Second, in order to reduce the impacts of social media use on teen mental health, we will coordinate a social media campaign for unplugged days. Third, in order to raise awareness and reduce discrimination, we plan to develop and promote awareness of Spirit Days on campuses for anti-discrimination. Fourth, in order to reduce discrimination and help students that feel uncomfortable by perceived mistreatment, we plan to research uses for the school district's anonymous tip system to see if students can report instances of discrimination. And fifth, in order to decrease substance use among teens, we will co-host a wellness expo with the Simi Valley Unified School District before June of 2023. The Youth Council has continued planning the Youth Town Hall, scheduled on Friday, January 20th, 2023. Based on survey results and information gathered from peers, the Youth Council selected the Youth Town Hall discussion topic of social media with a focus on mental health and discrimination. During our most recent meeting on November 1st, we formed the following 3 committees to directly address the Youth Council work plan: the Mental Health Committee, the Bullying and Discrimination Committee, and the Substance Abuse Prevention Committee. In order to assist with raising funds for the year, the Youth Council also established the Fundraising and Talent Show committees. Finally, we created our Youth Summit Committee to begin planning for our next Youth Summit, which will take place in 2023. Looking ahead, the Youth Council will be participating in the city's annual volunteer fair, hosted by the YES Advisory Board on Wednesday, November 16th, at the Boys and Girls Club of Moore Park in Simi Valley, located at 2850 Lemon Drive. This event is free and residents of all ages are invited. So come on down to meet representatives from local nonprofits who will be highlighting the volunteer opportunities that they have available. If you haven't already, please follow us at Simi Valley Youth Council on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to stay updated on our upcoming activities and to see the original content from our social media committee. Our next Youth Council meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, November 15th, from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the Air Force One Pavilion. During the meeting, Youth Council members will have the opportunity to audition for the main speaking roles for the Youth Town Hall. Just a reminder that these meetings are open to the public, so if anyone is interested, please feel free to attend. Once again, I would like to thank you, Mayor Mashburn, and the City Council members for having me here tonight. And thank you all so much for your continued support. I would love to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Elaine Lister has a question for you.
I do have a question. Actually, I was delighted to hear your thrust this year. I noticed that you mentioned very briefly that one of the things you're going to try to lobby for is school excused absences for mental health. How do you envision that working?
Well,
They need a doctor's note, or were they just going to? I think it's a great idea. I just wondered what the thoughts are there.
Well, that was actually an action item from last year's Youth Council as well that we worked on with that mental health committee, and it's a proposal that we hope to carry through this year and continue to work on. So how that works is what the mental health committee last year envisioned was that 1 day per quarter, a student could use a mental health day off as an excused absence, and that would still be counted as an excused absence. So the Youth Council hopes to finish putting that proposal together this year and presenting it to either the school district or state, whichever is more appropriate.
I like it. I like it a lot. So again, just to reiterate, tomorrow, or excuse me, the 16th is Wednesday.
Yes.
Is your volunteer fair, in essence?
Yes, that's right.
And it's for youth? Is it for all?
It's for all ages.
For all ages, okay. And the time again is what is?
I believe 6 to 7.
6 to 7, okay.
7:30.
6 to 7:30, wonderful. So I want to be sure that people are aware that that's a wonderful thing to provide for youth and for everyone who's looking for a way to make a difference, as you are. Thank you, AG, for 4 years of fabulous service.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Seeing no one else, you must have covered it very well, right? We don't have the questions. But we certainly appreciate your service. And I'd like to say one thing, because I won't be here too much longer, and that way I can say it and get away with it. Is Youth Council. After I've been around the Youth Council, it should be Young Adult Council. It's youth doesn't fully describe the talent we have and the work that they do. So spread that along, maybe get a banner, say, hey, Mashburn said we ought to be called.
Thank you so much.
Young Adult, thank you.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 4, public statements. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, since there are no public hearings under agenda item 5 this evening, agenda items 4 and 6 are combined, and the City Council will hear all public statements under this agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 and agenda item number 6 are times allotted for public statements on all items other than public hearings, appointments, and informational reports. Speakers will be called on in the order which the card was submitted to speak on this public statements item 4 for a period of no more than 3 minutes each. Persons addressing the City Council are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Mr. Mayor, unless you have any comments, we can begin public statements.
Ready for the first speaker.
First speaker, Doug Bamforth.
Good evening. I'm going to talk today about my favorite subject, water. I think we need a 5-year water plan, and a detailed water plan, and we need it in 1-year segments, and it must be realistic. That's something that we can actually do. I'm old, my mind is going, but when they're talking about livelihoods and how people live, we should include some of these youth council members in this, because they have fresh minds, they have fresh ideas, and it's something that needs to be done. We cannot be beholden to the Thomasers of the North. We need to have our own plans, and if need be, in conjunction with the other cities in Ventura County. Thank you.
Brian Kane.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I am Simi resident Brian Kane, and as you know, I'm on Neighborhood Council number 4 as a board member. I'm also on the Parish Council at St. Peter Claver Catholic Parish. I'd like to thank Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council who attended our parish's 50th Jubilee celebration about 2 weeks ago on Sunday, October 30th. I personally saw and greeted Mayor Mashburn, Councilman Judge, and Councilwoman Libanos at the celebration mass, and I thank you. I want to further thank the city for the street repairs, including roadbed replacement and pothole repairs that are being done. I spoke on this topic before the council here in April of this year, and someone on my homeowner board there in Madison County, the Homeowner Association, he said, Brian, I give you a lot of credit. You spoke, and all of a sudden all these repairs are happening. But I said, the city has been doing these repairs, and I want to convey our appreciation to you for that. I bring another topic to the council today. This regards automobiles in the city and my recommendations for citing certain violations. I want to focus on illegally loud exhaust and muffler systems, and number 2, on illegally darkened front driver and passenger side windows. Number 1, the loud mufflers are a big detriment to our quality of life here in the city. I am speaking for every resident, especially the proverbial little old ladies that I happen to know that really want just peace and quiet in our town. I think that's a big quality of life issue. Number 2, the darkened driver and passenger windows, when they're illegally darkened, I know there's a certain threshold for that, but they do not permit law enforcement to see if the driver is looking at a cell phone or has an open container or is drowsy or whatever. And the police bring tremendous safety just by their observation and advising drivers of these types of issues. which they can't do if the windows are darkened. All these create hazards, and cause accidents in our city. Those two issues, the mufflers, the loud mufflers and the darkened windows, influence what we all know as the broken window syndrome, in which citing of these issues will prevent additional, more serious violations and establishing the awareness on the part of residents and visitors to our city that, hey, you just don't do these stupid things here. It keeps people at a certain threshold, and maybe they don't do worse violations. And I'm a big believer in that, and that would, I think, improve the actions of drivers in our city. So I thank you again. The issues is the loud mufflers and the darkened driver windows, which I think we should consider citing, to establish those levels of safety and quiet. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Richard Perini.
Hello. I wanted to thank everyone on the council for approving the funds to remap the flood zones. For a lot of people who live in those areas, we truly feel it's unnecessary, but in order to have a mortgage, you're required to have it. I heard a dissertation about how the map was formed and how old it is, and I'm just very thankful for that. My other topic that I wanted, a couple others. The funds from the tourism tax that we get from these hotels. I was at an event up at Hummingbird Ranch, and it was a Hopetown reunion, and they heard some pretty interesting facts, one of which was, I guess the city of Simi Valley was the first city to have an international motorcycle race. I don't know why, and nobody can give me an answer why we don't have any plaque or commemorative event. With this tourism money, I guess it's up to 900,000 plus, that's what I was told. But if that's the case, can some of those funds be used to commemorate that event, as it would be, I think, a real tourism opportunity. The third event was, I read an article in the Ventura County Star talking of ethics violations with a planning commissioner, and it didn't really put our city in a good light. And I hope we can get through this quickly and look at it thoroughly, but that kind of press, I don't think, is great for our city. And fourth, thank you for fixing a lot of those streets. I know you guys have done a great job with budgets and saving that money, so I appreciate you using it, on that. Just thank you all, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Gina Trunkhill.
Hello, my name is Gina Troncalli, Mayor Mashburn, members of the City Council. I'm a Simi Valley resident. I reside in District 4. I was coming out tonight to speak about the eucalyptus trees on Sinaloa Road. I pass by them every day, going to and from my home, as I have for the last almost 25 years, and they are beautiful and majestic. And I don't know if I'm too late and if there's anything that can be done to save them. I know at the last City Council meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Lister had asked that maybe we could take another look and have another arborist review the situation, and City Manager said that that was possible. Though this past week, after the City Council meeting, when I was driving down Sinaloa Road, there were more trees that were being removed. So I was just wondering, what was happening. I totally understand the city's concern for liability and not wanting to have a tree fall on anyone's home or property or person, and that is, I'm totally understanding of that. I'm just wondering, if in the interest of expediency, the idea of removing all of the trees was how things were considered. And I'm wondering if it's possible to take a more conservative approach and maybe looking at the trees more on an individual basis to see if there's any trees that we could indeed save. I think they really add to the character and the value of our neighborhood on Sinaloa Road, and also the value and character of Simi Valley as a whole. You know, when you drive down, Sycamore Street and you see all those beautiful, majestic sycamore trees, or even also where I live on Bennett, there's these beautiful pine trees, mature ones, and, it really does add to the character and the beauty of the community. So I would ask, if possible, if we could take a look at that and see if there's any way to save any of those trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last speaker.
Okay. Comments from the council? Who would like to go first? How about Elaine Litster?
Thank you, Mayor. I just in a response to Gina Troncali, I'll get that right, Gina. She just referenced that trees were starting to come down. I thought that had been stayed. Is there tree removal that is happening on Sinaloa?
We had 2 trees that were previously scheduled to come down because they were diseased and hazardous. So we took those, actually, I think it was just 1, but two trees down, and that's it. We are currently getting a bid from certified arborists to do another report. So it was just those 2, and today we actually ground the stumps on those 2 trees.
Okay.
So there are no more trees coming down until the new report is done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then just one quick comment. Thank you for all of your comments that were made. Much appreciated. And I love your ideas, Mr. Bamforth, as far as creating a 5-year action plan for water. I really like that. It is my understanding, and this is a response to Mr. Brian Kane, that darkened windows and loud mufflers are currently being cited. But I will, we have our wonderful chief of police here, and he's hearing you. I want you to know that. And I suspect he'll have a conversation with you afterwards. So anyway, I just appreciate all of your involvement. Thank you.
Councilmember Luevanos.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Banforth, thank you for having the foresight to not only address the issue of water. I do believe that we not only need to have a detailed 5-year water plan, that we do need to include young voices, but we need to have an environmental plan as well, which I've been asking for. So thank you for bringing that to light and for including voices of our youth, the next generation, which are going to suffer the consequences of us not having a water plan, as you suggested. Mr. Kane, I agree. I literally had my view blocked by someone in a big truck that the exhaust smoke was so bad I had to wait like 30 seconds before the smoke cleared so I could see in front of me. So I know that the exhaust and the muffler systems that are spewing smoke is a safety issue, as I can attest to personally. So thank you for bringing that to light. And yes, we have been asking it does take a while for us to pave the roads and fix the potholes. So it's years in advance for us to get those things done. But thank you for acknowledging that. Mr. Perini, yes, we've been asking for a while to redo the flood zones. We know that it financially impacts a lot of homeowners, so thank you for bringing that to light. And I agree, I would love to have some sort of commemorative event for the motorcycle race. I'd love for our city to be a destination for something other than Beer Fest. I think a motorcycle event would be really cool to have in the city. And Ms. Troncali, thank you for bringing up the issue of the eucalyptus trees, and we are looking into that. Thank you.
All right. Great. I think I'll just respond to Mr. Perini and the motorcycle event. The nighttime Rotary has kind of taken that and run with it, and will do it as starting out as a annual event. And they're looking for ideas to expand it. And I think it's important to point out that it's not a motorcycle racing event. There's no motorcycles allowed to be ridden at this event. It's strictly static displays of old bikes that the racers that raced in Hopetown from 1958 to 75 rode. So it's a great event. It's growing, and thank you for your words on it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 7, the consent calendar, and there is one resolution for your consideration this evening. Consent item 6, resolution number 2022-63, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley ratifying the Ventura County Fire Protection District's Ordinance Number 32, amendments pertaining to building standards requiring installation of fire sprinklers in all occupancies and locations set forth in Chapter 5, Section 507, Chapter 9, Section 903, and Appendix B within the jurisdictional boundaries of the City of Simi Valley.
Discussion? Elaine?
Turn my mic off, I'm sorry. Actually, I would like to pull consent item 6.
Okay. All right.
Any others? I was going to move. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent items number 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Second?
Okay, motion and second to 1, 3, and 5?
1, 2, 3, and 5.
1, 2, 3, and 5.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay,
We have between the fire marshal and our building official, we're all here to,
I know we've got the big guns here to really answer these questions. Just a couple of quick questions. As I read through the report, it's my understanding that, and I know that we have to ratify this. If we don't, it basically will go through regardless of our vote upon it. So I'm not naive about saying, wait, let's put a stop to this. I'm not, and that's not. But my question is more one of understanding exactly what is meant now by requiring sprinklers in all buildings, basically except garages. As I read through the report, if someone is remodeling and they are adding a room addition, it appeared then that their entire structure now needs to have sprinklers installed. Is that accurate?
Good evening. Masood Aragi, Fire Marshal, Ventura County Fire. No, if the addition is over 50% of the existing, then it would require. If the addition is less than 50% of the existing, it does not.
Is the
Under
portion that
residential.
they're adding, that
Yes.
requires it, but not the entire structure, is that correct?
No, not even the addition requires, unless the addition is more than 50% of the existing structure.
Got it. So this applies to all accessory dwelling units? This
No,
apply-
ADUs are exempt under the law unless there are some water issues or access issues, but ADUs are exempt under the law. The only time ADUs are required to have sprinklers if the main residence has a sprinkler. If the main residence does not have fire sprinklers, the ADUs are not required to have sprinklers.
Okay, I guess the way, as I read this, I thought it was being more draconian, but okay, I appreciate that. But any new home that's being built now
Yeah, California.
is all
requires
requiring
it.
sprinklers.
Correct.
And just so we're understanding, what is, and maybe you're not the gentleman to really ask this, but maybe my planning department is, but what expense percentage does that add to a structure when we require sprinklers? Do we have a sense of what that adds to the building cost? I'm
Are you
not saying
talking
it's
about-
not a good thing, I'm just curious.
Are you talking about new construction?
New
or-
construction to a home, let's say a $500,000 home, what percentage?
I'm not so sure, but I typically have heard that there are, the cost is as much as the carpeting in the house. But I can't say that for sure. I don't have the numbers.
Is it still safe to, in a way of estimating, because a $5,000 or a $500,000 home, it has to do with the square footage of the home.
Correct.
You know, big difference there. And then there's the question of, which I doubt we can answer,
Yeah.
is the insurance discount that you would probably receive for having a sprinklered home. So that's a factor that needs to be put in, that, yeah, it might cost you a little more to install them when new. However, you're gonna get some return on your insurance rates. So that's why it's such a difficult question to answer. It seems
Fair
very
enough,
easy.
fair enough, yes. And so I just wanted to though truly understand who is now required, so I think, thank you, that, as I read it, that wasn't clear to me, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
can't, wait, sued. Thank you. I have a question, and again, it's, you said that if the first home, not the ADU, if the main dwelling does have sprinklers, then the ADU also has to have sprinklers?
Correct. And if the
Regardless of distance or anything?
correct. California requires any new structures to have sprinklers on residential. And, but the only exemption, if the main house doesn't have sprinklers, then the ADU does not require to have sprinklers.
All right. That was my question. Thank you. Anybody else? Good luck.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent item number 6.
I'll second.
Motion second for consent 6. Vote.
The motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 9A, consideration of amendments to the Simi Valley Municipal Code, Title 8, Building Regulations, and adoption of the 2022 California Building Standards Code by reference, introduction of an ordinance, and determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. The reading of the ordinance is as follows. Ordinance number 1346, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley amending Title 8 of the Simi Valley Municipal Code, adopting by reference, together with amendments thereto, the codes that comprise Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations, and specifically the 2022 edition of the California Building Code, the 2022 edition of the California Residential Code, the 2022 edition of the California Electrical Code, the 2022 edition of the California Mechanical Code, the 2022 edition of the California Plumbing Code, the 2022 edition of the California Energy Code, the 2022 edition of the California Green Building Standards Code, the 2022 edition of the California Historical Building Code, the 2022 edition of the California Existing Building Code, the 2022 edition of the California Reference Standards Code, the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code, security standards for buildings as mandated by California Health and Safety Code Section 18938, and repealing ordinance number 1301 in its entirety. And Ted Drago is here to present this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Good to see you. The state of California adopts a new edition of the building codes every 3 years. The building code development is an ongoing consensus process where all stakeholders, including construction industry, material manufacturers, and code officials, ratify the model codes at a national level. The current model codes are called the 2021 International Building Codes. The California Building Standards Commission amends and adopts the model as a 2022 California Building Codes, also known as Title 24. The 2022 edition will also be effective January 1st. All jurisdictions in the state are required to adopt the 2022 California Building Code at this time, so it's statewide. The proposed ordinance contains the adoption by reference of the California codes of the city's existing local amendments for seismic standards. The local amendments set minimum requirements for shear walls, foundations, and new wood frame construction. Staff recommends introduction of this proposed ordinance for the first reading and schedule a public hearing for the second reading on December 5th. This completes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Councilmember Judge.
This meeting's moving along way too fast. I'd like a complete reading of all those ordinances, please.
You got it, sir.
Thanks, Ted.
I second.
Okay, I'll ask a question, Mike, just to be sure it doesn't move too fast for you. Actually, is that all right, Mayor, if I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Could you, and I was looking for it, I was trying to understand, the IPMC provides the city with a property maintenance model code to address cases of trash accumulation and unsanitary conditions in existing buildings. Can you explain a little bit of what that maintenance model code, how it's different, what it looks like?
So what it is the model code from ICC, just like the building code. It addresses existing properties and how you maintain them. It addresses pretty much the code enforcement aspects of what the city does, both building and safety and the code enforcement group. So with it, we combine the state housing law with this model code, and it gives us a format in which we can have these bases to do good enforcement on really pack rat situations and difficult housing situations. It's the basis.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion. All right, I move to introduce first reading ordinance number 1346 to amend Title 8 relating to building regulations of the Simi Valley Municipal Code and in accordance with Government Code Section 50022.3, schedule a public hearing for December 5th, 2022.
Second.
Motion and second. Call for the vote.
This is the first.
Actually, just as a first reading, we just need a motion, so we're good.
Oh.
We're good.
Okay. I'll pull the call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 9B, discussion and possible action related to Planning Commissioner members' conduct regarding the City of Simi Valley Code of Ethics and Conduct for elected officials and members of appointed board commissions and committees, and City Manager Gabler will be presenting this item.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, in December of 2016, the City Council nominated and the mayor appointed Alan Mann to the Simi Valley Planning Commission. Since that time, Mr. Mann has served on the Planning Commission, and in particular on two votes are in question this evening. On December 17th of 2018, the Planning Commission approved recommended a development be approved by the City Council, the Fountainwood Estates, and that project was moved by a 4-1 vote onto the City Council. In December of 2018, later that year, the Planning Commission again considered the development. It came back to the Planning Commission due to an oversight on staff's part, and the Planning Commission approved that development again by a vote of 4-0, as there was one vacancy on the Planning Commission. At the October 24th City Council meeting, Councilmember Luevanos and Mayor Mashburn requested that the City Council look into possible violations of the city's Code of Ethics by Planning Commissioner Mann. The staff report before you tonight addresses all the facts that we know of to the case, and in particular, with regard to the Code of Ethics, we are looking at Code of Ethics Section number 3, in particular, conduct of members. The professional and personal conduct of members must be above reproach and avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Staff has outlined the options available to the City Council, and we are available to answer any questions.
Councilmember Luevanos.
Thank you. I have some questions.
Okay.
My first question is, was Mr. Mann what was Mr. Mann's job on January 17, 2018? Was he a real estate agent at that time?
My understanding is yes.
Okay. My second question is, did he apply to be the listing agent for the Fountainwood Estates?
We don't have that fact.
Was he appointed? Did he have a choice as to whether or not he could be the listing agent? Was he forced to do so?
Was he? I can assume that he was not forced to do so.
So Mr. Mann had the choice not to be the listing agent for Fountainwood Estates.
I believe that would be the case.
Okay, so did Mr. Mann have full knowledge of the Code of Ethics on January 17, 2018, when he was planning commissioner and a real estate agent?
I can't speak for Mr. Mann, but I would assume so.
Did Mr. Mann have, when did Mr. Mann apply to be the listing agent, and when did he actually become the listing agent for Fountainwood Estates?
We don't have those facts.
Hey, let me interrupt 1 second. Mr. Mann is here and has offered to answer questions. So I don't know when it'd be appropriate to bring him up, but I just want everybody to know that.
I think it's important to remember that the item on the agenda is just discussion and possible action for a future hearing, and so that's what I would recommend.
These are relevant facts in determining whether or not to have a future hearing.
All right, go ahead. I appreciate the interruption.
Can anyone answer these questions?
You're asking us facts that we are not aware of. You would have to ask Mr. Mann those questions.
Okay, so in order, I just want to make sure with legal counsel, in order to move forward to ask Mr. Mann these questions, we have to approve a future agenda item for censure, is that correct? Or can you walk me through the process?
Sure, you'd have
Can you
to.
answer those questions right here and now?
I would recommend, what's on the agenda tonight is a discussion and possible action related to a planning commissioner's conduct regarding the City of Simi Valley's Code of Ethics and Conduct for Elected Officials. We've kind of laid out within the report what your options are, and you can make a determination. If there's a majority vote to move forward with the options listed in the report, then you can come back at a future council meeting and make that determination then, and perhaps have, a further discussion with Mr. Mann answering those questions.
Okay, let me ask another question, and hopefully someone will have an answer for me. Did Mr. Mann sign the Code of Ethics?
We have a signed version of the Code of Ethics from Mr. Mann, yes.
Is there any reason to believe that that was a forgery?
No.
So we have every reason to believe that the signed Code of Ethics was actually signed by Mr. Mann.
We believe it was signed by Mr. Mann.
Okay, so that demonstrates that he was aware of the Code of Ethics. Yes?
One could assume so.
And is Mr. Mann currently a real estate agent?
My understanding is yes.
Okay, and is he the current co-listing agent for the Fountainwood Estates project?
That's our understanding.
Has he sold any, and what is the, what does a co-listing agent do? Just, this is for the public, I know what it is, but does a co-listing agent make money off of the sale of the Fountainwood Estates?
I am not a real estate agent. I wouldn't be able to answer that, but I would assume so.
Okay, so in general, we know that listing agents make money off of the properties that they sell.
One would assume.
Okay. Has he sold any of the, have any of the Fountainwood Estates been sold to date?
I am not aware of any sales transactions taking place.
Okay. Does Mr. Mann have the option to remove himself as co-listing agent?
One would assume.
Okay, so Mr. Mann has the option to remove himself as co-listing agent. And I'm not sure whether or not, and I will ask legal counsel again, if we can ask Mr. Mann if he chooses to remove himself as co-listing agent.
Again, I will emphasize again, the agenda what's agendized is a discussion and possible action related to a planning commission member's conduct regarding the City of Simi Valley's Code of Ethics and Conduct for Elected Officials and members and appointed boards, commissions, and committees. And so if there's a majority of vote to take any of the actions stated within the report, then I would recommend, if there is a majority vote, to proceed to a future hearing.
Okay, I have no more questions at this time, but I would like to make a statement later, Mayor, if I may.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mann did provide each and every one of us an email correspondence, which answers most of Ms. Levino's questions. Mr. Mann is a licensed real estate broker and also property manager. And so he does have a right to earn a living in this community. When he was appointed as a planning commissioner, he was a real estate agent. At that time, before I appointed him, I verified with our city attorney, would there be a conflict of interest with that? And I was told no. And so that's why the appointment was able to go through. This is his business. It's a third of his business. And 2/3 approximately is his property management business. He's been in business over 25 years, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. He was able to apply and be tested, and in the letter he sent, it tells you, after many months, many presentations, many revisions, and many alterations, Sally Becerra and I were selected to be the listing agents for the 6 homes in Phase 1. So that information is right there. We also have already had 2 different legal opinions tell us that there is no conflict of interest. Mr. Mann is acting in good faith. I believe that, and he is allowed to earn a living. And if there are people that have a severe dislike for him and his partner, then I would hope that that would not have any affect any discussion or votes up here tonight. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. I want to go ahead with the questions I have. Really, it's more of a statement. But it starts, I'm concerned about the procedure. That's what my problem is. And I'll be the first to say, I was the one that went to the city attorney and the city manager when I saw the notice of the grand opening of these houses, new houses. But I want to point out something. It says this is coming right out of our Code of Ethics. It says the Simi Valley Code of Ethics and conduct expresses standards of ethical conduct expected for members of the Simi Valley City Council, boards, commissions, and committees. Members themselves have the primary responsibility to assure that ethical standards are understood and met, and that the public can continue to have full confidence in the integrity of governments. That sentence right there is why this is on my radar. This country has a deep dislike for politicians, and it's because of overlooking things like this or putting profit in one's pocket over the appointment or the elected position that they serve in. The chairs, going back to the Code of Ethics, the chairs of boards, commissions, and committees and mayor have the additional responsibility to intervene when members' action appear. That's very important, the word appear to be in violation of the Code of Ethics and conduct are brought to their attention. The city council may impose sanctions and what have you, and it's all about having us comply with the city's ethical standards. And we can go to reprimand, formal censure, loss of seniority, or committee assignment. City council may also act to remove members of boards, commissions, and committees for violations. Okay, I think that's my method of explaining to you why I brought this up. I felt, it says right there, that it's my duty to bring it up. Not to be the judge and jury, but certainly there is an appearance when you have a former council member's wife working with a current planning commissioner to sell homes that both voted on the original development. I say it simply doesn't meet the optical that it should. It looks like something's up here. And that's why I brought it up, is what's going on? I need an explanation. I'm sorry to take a minute, but I think it's very important. In order to ensure or assure their independence and impartiality on behalf of the common good, members shall not use their official positions to influence government decisions in which they have a material financial interest or personal relationship which may give the appearance of a conflict of interest. So once again, here's the appearance, and that also comes often when you're looking at the FPPC rules. In accordance with laws, members shall disclose investments, interests in real property, sources of income, and gifts, and they shall abstain from participating in deliberations and decision-making where conflicts may. And I point out Councilmember Kavanaugh, how often she recuses herself based on she doesn't want any appearance and what have you. She sets a high standard of not letting people see a potential conflict by voting on things on this board. It states purpose of our ethics and conduct document is, I'm just going to highlight the one, public office must be used for the public good, not for personal gain. And I think that's quite simple to figure out if you're going to obtain personal gain or not. Under number 3, conduct of members. The professional and personal conduct of members must be above reproach and avoid even the, once again, appearance of impropriety. So at this time, I would like to ask council, what is the definition of appearance of impropriety?
There is one definition that can be as follows. The appearance of impropriety is a phrase referring to a situation which, to a layperson without knowledge of the specific circumstances, might seem to raise ethics questions.
Okay, so my question to that is, can you look at what we're looking at, where a planning commissioner and a sitting mayor pro tem voted on a project, and the planning commissioner and the mayor pro tem's wife became agents, exclusive agents, to sell the project. And I've heard over and over again, well, it's 4 years, so nothing counts. Well, guess what? It took about 4 years to build those houses. So how could they possibly sell them before they were finished? So, and I'm only asking on the appearance side. I'm not saying guilty, not guilty, anything like that. I'm saying, am I out of my mind to see that and then ask the question, like, what's going on? Yeah, that was a question.
The Code of Ethics is self-enforcing, so it's up to the city council to determine whether or not there's been an ethical violation or not.
Okay, which brings me to my last point. Somewhere around a year ago, I came to this council and I says, look, I personally feel we're doing incorrectly the way we're appointing planning commissioners. There's no vetting. It's the council, each member chooses whoever they want, no application whatsoever. And then that person comes to a council meeting and the entire council quickly votes together and appoints everybody. Hardly a vetting system. There's no application to look like, I feel if there was applications, this council could have sat down and looked at those applications and say, wow, this could become a conflict. This may or may not be the way to go. And it's not saying anybody's bad, has done anything bad. It's just saying that, you know what? We might want to look at this because this gentleman is a realtor in town and the chances of having a conflict are quite high. And so we'd have to discuss it with him further and then maybe look at alternatives. The other thing that I was asking to change that system for, the way we choose the planning commissioners, there's absolutely no hope for a person that's in your district that has the skills and desire to be a planning commissioner unless you happen to know the council member and are able to get appointed. So we've shut the door to a talent field of the whole city. And so that's where I'm coming back with. And I think potentially, if we would have looked at it a year ago when I brought it up and tried looking at it and all had a discussion, this all could have been prevented. And it doesn't mean anybody would be excluded. That's not my point. It would be that we looked at it, we saw it, we understood it. And those are the things that I have to say, and I appreciate the time. And Councilmember Luevanos, it's your floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you. I think there should be a system. The context of the conversation that you had, that there should be a process, was at a time when my planning commissioner was stepping down and I was appointing someone else. Someone who, and I did agree with you at the time that we should open up the process so that other people can apply, because we had, through neighborhood councils and through a number of systems that we have in place and interviews that we do for other committees, we do run across people that are highly qualified, and there are a number of highly qualified people. But tonight, and I'll be glad to bring this up at a 10B item, or I will second your motion, Mayor, to bring it up on a 10B item for the future. I agree with that. But the truth is this. The city, Simi Valley, was one of the last cities in the state of California to even pass a code of ethics. We received letters from the state of California saying we were out of compliance for not having a code of ethics. And therefore, we were forced, like we are many times, to make sure that we had a code of ethics. And we chose to pass, this city chose to pass a code of ethics, which is the bare minimum, which is self-enforcing. I know we've had issues here before. I know we've had ethical violations here before. And I do believe that we need to make sure that the public can continue to have full confidence in the integrity of the government. This is not a legal case. This is not about whether or not the law was violated, whether or not FPPC codes were violated. This is about whether or not our code of ethics was violated. And if we have a clear conflict of interest here, and we know that Mr. Mann was a real estate agent when he was on the Planning Commission, when this was approved, when the land was approved by the city-owned land was approved to go to a private investor, we know that he was a real estate agent at that time. We know that he's still on the Planning Commission. We know that he chose to apply to be the listing agent. He still had another opportunity after he was chosen to not be that listing agent, and he chose to be a listing agent. He has the opportunity right now to step down and say, I won't be that listing agent because I don't want there to be the appearance of impropriety. And the truth is that the Code of Ethics does impose upon us all sitting here on this dais the responsibility of calling out when there is an impropriety. And there is impropriety here. Mr. Mann did apply to be listing agent with the full knowledge that he had voted on this. He did not have to apply to this job. He did not have to take this job. No one was denying Mr. Mann the opportunity to earn a living. Councilmember Kavanaugh stated herself that 2/3 of his job is being a property manager. So he could have been a property manager for something else. He could have been a listing agent for something else. There's plenty of real estate in Ventura County and in Simi Valley. So this was a choice that he made off of a decision that he made 4 years ago that he was directly involved in. How can anyone not find a conflict of interest? How can our citizens have any sense of trust in our local government if we allow this to move forward? We can't. That's the truth, is that we can't have trust. And our residents won't have trust in us if we do not vote to censure and remove Mr. Mann, or at least give Mr. Mann the opportunity to remove himself as listing agent. I have a business, and I've never applied for a request for proposal for the city of Simi Valley because I know full well that it would be a conflict of interest. Councilwoman Lister has a business, and she wouldn't apply for a contract with the city of Simi Valley knowing full well that that would be a conflict of interest. We all make choices, but those choices have consequences. We have to, if we're going to say we're going to be a city of law and order, then we have to be a city of law and order. If we're going to be a city of ethics, then we have to act like we have ethics. We have to enforce the Code of Ethics. No one is denying Mr. Mann the right to earn a living, but we are stating that you cannot use your personal position as planning commissioner to profit off of a decision that you made. He was a real estate agent when he made this decision in January of 2018. He was a real estate agent and a planning commissioner when he decided to apply for the listing agent. He is currently the listing agent still for this property. There's clearly a conflict of interest, and anyone who showed up for the opening of the Fountainwood Estates would see a planning commissioner there as a listing agent making money off of a decision that he made 4 years ago. Now, whether or not he had the intent to plan that back then or not, I don't know. I can't speak to Mr. Mann's intentions 4 years ago. What I can see is that now this is a clear violation of the Code of Ethics, and this would violate any trust that our residents have in any of our governmental decisions, especially on the Planning Commission. Therefore, when and if you are ready, Mayor, I'm ready to make, and we know that Mr. Mann signed the Code of Ethics, so he was aware of what the Code of Ethics stated, and this was clearly a conflict of interest. And it states on page 2 of the Code of Ethics, in order to assure independence and impartiality on behalf of the common good, members shall not use their official positions to influence government decisions in which they have a material, financial interest, or personal relationship which may give the appearance of a conflict of interest. Clearly, there is a material financial interest in being one of the only 2 listing agents for a development that Mr. Mann approved 4 years ago. It says they shall abstain from participating in deliberations and decision-making where conflicts may exist. Anyone looking in would see this as a conflict of interest and see us as a pay-to-play city. And that is not the reputation that we want. I don't want this to go away simply because we ignore it. I want the conflict to be resolved, and I want the integrity of this local government to be reinstated. And the only way that can happen is if Mr. Mann steps down as listing agent or he steps down as planning commissioner. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Elaine, before we get started, I have a question for the legal counsel. You indicated that, if you'd say it again, I'd appreciate it, that what we're actually looking at tonight may not be taken in action, it's just to go forward.
Yeah, discussion and possible action for the future. You have to have a majority vote to decide which way you're going to go.
Okay, so we would have to say, we would have to agree, majority vote to say, yes, let's discuss this further?
Well, we have options within the report as to what actions you want to take.
Okay.
Based on the Code of Ethics.
Okay, we got to keep that in mind. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Lister.
Thank you. I am certainly hearing the discussion, and I actually wanted to thank Keith and Ruth for making this a public discussion, just because I think it's appropriate that this conversation be had publicly, and so that there is no appearance of deception or trying to, it's something that's not, or lack of transparency. And I'll be honest, when I first heard that Mr. Mann was the sole representative, and the name Becerra as well, I thought, oh, that's interesting. It was just kind of I thought, oh, that's interesting. I will say that there's some irony here, that the very knowledge or experience that could be beneficial to serve on the Planning Commission are often professions that are within that world, whether it be a realtor, a developer, an architect, a landscaper, an urban planning, a planner, a housing advocate, or whatever those professions may be, all of those might be qualifications that might serve well for someone who's serving on the Planning Commission. And so there's some irony here, because that knowledge then can or could become a potential conflict or reason to recuse, et cetera. And so there's a bit of irony as I think about this. And I certainly don't think one is expected to change their profession when they commit to serve on the commission. But obviously they're expected to recuse themselves if a project comes before them that they in some way have a connection to or intend to have a connection to. So in my mind, the question is, was there a relationship at the time, or was there an intent to have a relationship at the time? And I don't know that we really have the answer to that. But to Mr. Mann's credit, I understand that before he took this assignment or this job, he conferred with our city attorney. Is that correct, Mr. Caceres?
It is absolutely correct.
And would you kind of share with us the content of that conversation as you recall it?
He made an inquiry before, based on the fact that he had been serving as a Planning Commission member, and he indicated to me that he had no such financial interest, and he had no prospective financial interest. And as stated in the report, city staff has concluded that there is no conflict, no legal conflict of interest based on the state's government code, the California Political Reform Act, any conflict of interest of ethics, regulations of the Fair Political Practice Commission, or common law.
So did he specifically ask, do you see this as an ethical violation or an ethical concern? Did he phrase it that way?
I have to be a little careful. We did have a little bit of a conversation, and so well, the answer is not to my knowledge, but it's also kind of an attorney-client privilege communication.
Fair enough. So his employer now is his contractual relationship is with JBR Development Company. Is that because they're the
he's
builder?
Clearly precluded from this moment forward.
And that's my next question. So are there any current projects or plans or developments or anything that JBR has with the Planning Commission or in the Planning Department that we are aware of?
There are none.
But if there were, there would be a conflict of interest.
I question, I think I read somewhere that there's only 6 houses. No, it says phase 1. So does that mean phase 2, they're gonna put out to bid to other realtors to be the exclusive realtors? Or have they already decided that Mr. Mann will be it? And so that would indicate to me that there is.
Well, there are no applications before the city for, from JBR Management Company for any future development. Whether Mr. Mann represents 6 homes, 12 homes, 6, 12, 13, I don't know. That's up to JBR Management Company. That's not a city.
But would it be fair to say if they've only got however many they have for sale right now, and the others aren't built yet, wouldn't it stand to reason that they would go into phase 2 when phase 1 sells out?
Assumably.
But
there's no city approvals that would necessitate that.
There are no pending entitlements.
Okay, and so I thank you. I appreciate this conversation and this discussion. It seems to me that Mr. Mann, because he's here in chambers, might want to just say something. Is it appropriate?
I plan on giving
Is
you
it
that
appropriate to allow him to have just to share any thoughts?
I
or-
really would recommend against it at this purpose. There were statements that were, I would recommend against it. It's discussion and possible action in the future. There might be a need for a public hearing in the future if there's a majority vote to go in that direction. But for this purpose, for this hearing, for this agendized item, you need to make a determination as to which direction you want to go.
I think Mr. Mann would like the opportunity. Now,
Mayor, may I make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, after discussion. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Mr. Judge's comments on thoughts on this.
So how are you going to do it as far as your format? How are we going to do this?
right now, we're having discussion.
Okay.
As long as the discussion doesn't become redundant, I'd let him go ahead.
Okay, then the only thing I'm going to say is, if you show me a piece of paper or a document or any other kind of thing, get a witness to come forward, that Mr. Mann had a financial obligation or financial interest in this endeavor when he was proposing its, or when he was voting on its approval, I would say you have something. Otherwise, you don't. You've said it over and over, and I wasn't the one that said it. Everybody on this dais has said it so far. We do not stop a person from earning a living once they become an appointed or an elected member of our city body. So, since this was his job prior to being on the Planning Commission, and he had no financial interest in approving this position, and this job was, as far as I know, and I only know this through word of mouth that I think was brought up earlier, that this was a competitive bid. So he and his partner had a bid for this contract. So it wasn't like a gimme. Now, we've had 2 legal opinions already that say this is not a conflict of interest. So I think, just drag a good man's name through the mud through this process is not positive for our city. So I'm willing to, that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to speak?
No, I'm sorry. No, thank you.
Who does? Do you, Dee Dee?
I just, excuse me, I just had one final comment or two to make. Again, Mr. Mann was one of 5 people voting on these projects, so it's not like he was a sole person. Yes, I do understand it could be construed as an appearance, and that people should have brought it to the attention like you did, Mr. Mayor. but we have cleared that conflict of the appearance of a conflict of interest, in my opinion, by our legal conflict or by our legal representation telling us it cleared both the conflict of interest and the FPPC. And by this discussion up here, we have stipulated certain things that show there, even though there may have been an appearance of a conflict of interest, it does not exist. So, and Mr. Mann did contact our city attorney, and one of the expressions or explanations was that more than enough time had elapsed since his official involvement with the development, that he was free to be involved, and that this development, as there was no legal conflict of interest, again, he had to bid for this job. It was not handed to him. So I think we've done our job as explaining any appearance of a conflict of interest, and that's the end of my conversation. Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to say one thing. It's my understanding, and we could ask legal counsel, the opinion of the attorney at the time doesn't remove the responsibility of the person asking the questions. Is that true?
That's correct.
So regardless of what you said, there's still an appearance of, I'm not saying there was, I'm saying there's still clearly an appearance of and the only thing that I could say is that I would just state, what's the word, the term you use, and disavow this process, because this process is flawed, and this is a very obvious sign of it is flawed, and it should have been dealt with. And so we have a flawed process that encourages pay for play.
I'm sorry, I'm not, when you say a flawed process, you mean in the selection of planning commissioners or in?
The whole thing, yeah.
I agree with you, Mayor. However, dealing with the issue at hand, we are, and I disagree with Councilmember Kavanaugh and Councilmember Judge. This is not about a legal conflict of interest. This is about a violation of our city's code of ethics. That's what we are here to discuss this evening. And the truth is that Mr. Mann stands to gain a minimum of $300,000 at a 6% rate at the average home price of $821,000. If he got 6% commission on each of those 5 homes, that's nearly $300,000 that he stands to gain from being a real estate agent and a planning commissioner that approved this transfer of city property to a private developer.
Do you have proof of that
Is that what
amount?
is that what we want? Is that what we want to have? Planning commissioners that are going to profit $300,000 off of their positions as planning commissioners? Because that's what he stands to make. And that's just on phase 1, if there are 6 homes. Now, phase 2, phase 3, I don't know how much more. And that's if they sell for $821,000, which is the average price of a home.
Councilmember Luevanos, you are
Excuse
stating
me,
facts, not in
I'm
evidence.
speaking, Councilmember Kavanaugh, and I'm tired of your rudeness, so let me finish.
Excuse me.
I'm tired of you saying you hate me. I'm tired of you being rude. Have some decorum. Have some dignity.
Okay, enough. Go back to your comments.
The truth is that there is a clear financial conflict of interest, and there is a financial gain. I believe that, and I will make a motion to agendize a resolution or motion of censure discussion and hearing with at least a 72-hour Brand Act notice. And at the hearing, provide the subject member with an opportunity to present a rebuttal, which may include witnesses. Is that the correct motion, City Attorney?
Well, you have to determine whether or not there's a consensus to move forward with action,
Yes,
or a majority consensus.
So I would second that, however, with comment. If it doesn't pass, my comment is I disavow the process. This process is flawed. And I want
You're
that
talking
to
about the
know.
process of recruiting a planning commissioner.
So, yeah, all the way through.
I think that's a separate issue.
Okay, but I got it out.
Yeah, that's- yeah, I think
However,
that that's
a separate issue.
yeah, that is. I think that's irrelevant to this discussion, but I think it's something that we could certainly
You've
90.
never said anything irrelevant, and
Oh,
now
I
you're pointing me out?
I'm
Come on.
frequently irrelevant. I understand that.
believe-
But I do think that that is a discussion to be had in 9B. I think certainly we can revisit the way we vet our applicants for the Planning Commission individually, but I don't personally think that has bearing on this specific instance.
Well, you know what?
But thank you, Mayor.
I respectfully say, I don't really care when you want it.
Fair enough.
I got it out.
Fair enough.
I believe Councilman Luevanos is going to make that motion under 10B. That one that you're talking about.
Correct.
Yes, I will make that motion on 10B.
And would you read the motion again?
I move to agendize a resolution or motion of censure discussion and hearing with at least a 72-hour Brown Act notice, and at the hearing provide the subject member with an opportunity to present a rebuttal which may include witnesses.
I'll second. Okay. Motion and second. Vote.
Just a point of clarification. This needs to pass by a 4/5 resolution to go forward, or this is a,
3/5.
3/5.
3/5.
Removal would be 4/5.
so 3/5 to have a,
Just to have it move forward.
for,
Be a specific motion. I'm sorry, Councilman Luevanos, can you specify?
The motion is to have a censure discussion. So it's not even for censure, it's just a discussion on censure. Yes.
Well, just for clarity, you're looking to agendize a resolution or motion of censure discussion
Yes,
and a hearing
yes.
with a 72-hour notice. So you're scheduling a hearing.
Yes, for our next meeting is December 5th, is that correct?
Well, if we can turn around that quick, sure.
So that'd be 3/5.
I'm not going to have that. Okay, call for the vote. Failed.
The motion fails.
Okay, so that's, puts it to bed right there.
It does.
Okay, and that puts it to bed for Mr. Mann.
I believe so.
Okay, I just want him to know that this is done, there's not going to be another hearing. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is 10A, City Council Member Reports.
okay, Councilmember Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Tuesday, November 8th, with election night, I hope everybody got out and voted. I noticed our numbers were way down as far as voter participation, which makes me sad. So remember, every vote counts. Please vote in your elections. On Thursday, November 10th, I attended the arrival of a German World War II freight car that was used to transport victims to several of the death camps in Nazi Germany during World War II, which is going to be on display at the Reagan Library. It's going to be a very, very moving display, and I suggest everybody, if you haven't had a chance yet, go online to the Reagan's website and get your tickets for this, because it's going to be a very good presentation. 10:30 that same day, I got into the VCRE board meeting late on a Zoom meeting. Nothing really was discussed that affects Simi Valley. And later that day, with Councilmember Luevanos, I attended the Task Force on Homelessness. We are going to bring forward some recommendations to the council on the future, possibly changing the name of the task force, such and such. On Friday, November 11th, I was honored to be included in and invited to the Veterans Day ceremony over at our Veterans Memorial in Lemon Park, and the multiple veterans agencies, the VFW, the DAV, the American Legion, and the Marine Corps League, and we even had an active, or I think he's a National Guard soldier, Ryan Valencia out there, put on a great presentation for Veterans Day. So I was very proud of that, and they did a great job. I was glad to be there, glad to see it, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. D.D. Kavanaugh.
Thank you, sir. we only had a week to fill in, so we didn't have too much. We were scheduled for a Ventura County Animal Services Commission meeting on Thursday, November 10th. Unfortunately, somebody couldn't figure out how to get the Zoom to work, so we are rescheduling that. But things are going along great there. If you need any kittens, please go get one. They have lots of kittens. They have lots of dogs too, but lots of kittens. I also attended the Veterans Day ceremony on November 11th with the majority of the council. It's always a wonderful event put on jointly by the city and the Parks and Rec. I think Parks and Rec does most of the work, though, don't they? I can say that from when I was there. But it was a great event, and I agree. Specialist Ryan Valencia, Army National Guard, did a wonderful job. He goes, "I'm a little nervous." I said, "You'll do great." So he did a wonderful job. My dad was Army National Guard for 30 years and was a master sergeant. So I told him, "My dad's watching you, so you better do good." So he started laughing. That was a wonderful event. The only other thing I want to say is, Mike Judge, you're our only veteran up here. So thank you for your service. And he was Army, which is really great too. That's it for me. Thank you.
Councilmember Lebanos.
Sorry, turned off my mic. Thank you, Mayor. On Thursday, November 10th, I did attend the Task Force on Homelessness meeting with Councilman Judge via Zoom. I do have a couple recommendations. One of the recommendations that we made, and I'll make the motion on 10B, was to change the name of the Task Force for Homelessness to the Task Force for the Unhoused. We also had a wonderful presentation from Dignity Moves, and Dignity Moves is a company that set up in Santa Barbara. Well, they have several projects throughout California, but one of their major projects is in Santa Barbara, and they provide safe sleeping sites for unhoused individuals and families. One of the requirements is for the city to declare a housing or shelter crisis, but they do have a lot of buy-in from the local businesses. They do partner and help find funding so that they can do rapid housing. It is not a replacement. They were very clear about it's not a replacement for permanent housing, and that a good chunk of those who are involved in these safe sleeping sites do find homes, permanent homes. And so it's not meant to be a forever. It's just to help people get to where they need to be. And they don't need a site that's going to be vacant forever. They just need a site that's going to be vacant for at least 2 years. People usually stay 6 to 12 months. And they even get people that want to rent private land, even private developers. They can lease it for $1 and write off the rest. And so they have supportive services. They are working with the city of Thousand Oaks. They have a building in Santa Maria, and it really helps with the housing crisis. They said that within the first 4 weeks of their Santa Barbara project, 8 people of the 35 got jobs. They just really needed the opportunity to be able to take showers and to get heater and have Wi-Fi. And so this really is a bridge to that permanent supportive housing that a lot of them have. Rick from Many Mansions came and talked about their cooperation with it. We only need, they have, some that are small, 300 square feet per unit. And then they have, the largest size of the property is 20,000 square feet for 70 units. And then they move it around so that it's not just in one area. And they can do units for individuals and families. And so it was a wonderful thing that they presented, and how many people that they help find permanent housing. And so for a lot of people, it's just a matter of being able to find that bridge to get to permanent housing or to prevent homelessness and to get those jobs. So they also work in San Francisco, and they partner with local supportive service agencies, of which many said that they were interested in doing it as well here in Simi Valley. So, and they said that there's hardly any pushback from NIMBYs, that they prioritize people already sleeping in the areas, and good program. So I'll bring it up at 10B because I think it's a wonderful program and something that we should think about doing to help our unhoused population. On Friday, November 11th, unfortunately, I had a family obligation, and I was not able to attend the Veterans Day ceremony, but we did do something at my school, which I've been doing for about 20 years now, where my students write thank you letters to the veterans, and then we give them a little goodie bag, and it always makes our veterans very tearful. We do have a veteran at our school. So all the kids wrote thank you notes, and we gave them to him, and he was very grateful. On Saturday, November 12th and 13th, I want to wish a congratulations to the Santa Susana High School Junior Statesmen of America team. They competed in downtown at the Sheraton, and so congratulations to the JSA team from Santa Susana High School. And on Sunday, November 13th, I ran a 15K, Heroes for Hope, and I dedicated it to two young girls, Ileana and Hazel, lost to us at the ages of 5 and 6. This is a picture of Ileana, and she died of brain cancer. And the run was called the Heroes of Hope. I'm actually an advisor for students traveling. We trained for the LA Marathon, and the run was called Heroes of Hope, and it is to find a cure for brain cancer. And so I dedicated my run to Ileana and to Hazel, a 5 and 6-year-old little girls from Simi Valley who died due to brain cancer. So the last mile of that run was very emotional for me because I knew Ileana's family personally. They still live here in Simi Valley, and I wanted them to know that I was thinking of Ileana, I was thinking of Hazel, and I was running for them. Thank you, Mayor. That's my report.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Litzner.
Thank you, and thank you for those thoughts, Councilmember Lavnos. Tuesday, November 8th, Election Day. Thank you to all those who participated. I know it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that we have, that ability and that opportunity to vote. And so thank you to all those that participated from all, from everywhere that voted. And I wanted just to say thank you to all of the candidates that have put in the time and the effort, desire to make our community better. There are a lot of outstanding candidates. Obviously, only one gets selected, but I just wanted to say thank you to all those who have that desire to contribute to our community. On Wednesday, November the 9th, I attended the Simi Valley Ed Foundation Teacher of the Month Award, which was held at Apollo High School, and Leslie Aravi was awarded. She was quite emotional, and you know, when you give so much to the students after 30 plus years, it's good to be recognized, and so congratulations to her. On Thursday, November the 10th, I attended the VCOG, Ventura County Association of Government Board meeting held in Camarillo, and there were a few interesting things, a couple of interesting reports that came out of it. One presentation was by by Caleb Brock, who's the Regional Planning Branch Chief at Caltrans District 7. And he was speaking about the Caltrans Sustainable Planning Grant Program, the funds that are available, and encouraging the cities to take advantage of it. I know we have grant things going on, riders, but he made it very apparent that there are funds there. He would love to give them out for transportation planning issues. I believe the only city that he acknowledged had been a recipient yet was Camarillo, but I think it'd be lovely to have Simi Valley to be also a recipient of one of those grants as well.
We applied and got denied last time we applied. So
Well,
we'll let you know, and you can remind him of that.
I will be happy to tell him that we are worthy recipients. Thank you. The other topic of conversation, which is really kind of quite interesting and something that I would like everyone to be aware of, is that there was a proposal by the Pacific Coast Broadband Consortium to have VCOG serve as an overreaching grant fund recipient for the state broadband funding. What's interesting about this is that basically the federal government and the state have invested quite a bit of money now, grant money, into this idea and this important element of having broadband for everyone. Now, obviously, we think of our highways and freeways that take us everywhere. The thought being is that we need to have that same information highway available to all. And so they approached VCOG to see if there was a willingness for them to serve as basically the umbrella authority to be the recipient of these funds to be distributed. Ultimately, the decision was made, basically they're applying for a $500,000 grant from the state to basically put the plan together, if I want to be accurate with it. But Ventura County is eligible to receive from the federal government $20 million in terms of for this project. And so they need a granting agency or an agency to kind of oversee this process. And so the discussion, the presentation, and Councilmember Kavanaugh will appreciate this, but we're discussing the partnership of EDC being the fiscal management arm of it, VCOG being the umbrella that is the Joint Power Alliance that to receive the funds or to oversee it, and then of course BCPC is the consortium that really makes it all happen. So anyway, I just wanted to share that that is being discussed. It looks like it is possibly going forward. The first leg is again this is to basically to provide $500,000 to see about a CPUC LATA funding to look at the basically plan to see if this will work. But I think it's looking positive, and so expect more information going forward that that maybe VCOG may be helping to share. And just to make it clear, this would allow $20 million to make sure that the middle mile is provided in terms of access to all of the communities that do not have broadband access. Now, I will say that Simi Valley is kind of ahead of the game. Thank you, Mr. Gabler. This isn't necessarily specifically funds that Simi Valley would be receiving, but we are obviously, you want redundancy in your internet communications, and so this would help allow for that redundancy, et cetera. So anyway, that took place on Thursday, November 10th. I too attended the wonderful Veterans Day event held by or sponsored by Rancho Tapo Community, or Simi, whatever that. Rancho Simi Recreation. Why can't I just say the Simi Parks? But Park District. Thank you. Anyway, it was a lovely, beautiful ceremony, and many here were there in attendance. I thought it was beautiful, the presentation of wreaths that was made to each of the branches. I wanted to thank Simi Valley High School Band, which played the different songs, the different special songs associated with each branch. I also thought it was outstanding that Royal High School's Junior ROTC was there helping to score it, as was El Camino's Junior ROTC. And so I think it's lovely, it's wonderful that we have youth coming from other communities to join and assist and celebrate. So anyway, it was a thank you to our veterans and all that they do. And so yes, just to be clear, it was Simi Valley High School's band and Royal High School's Junior ROTC. You two stop squabbling over there. Okay, I'm just, to continue with my report. Saturday, November 12th, I had the opportunity to represent the city at New Beginnings Fellowship Church of God's 50th Jubilee celebration, Golden Jubilee celebration. And Dr. Marcia and Clifton Clark are the pastors there, and doing wonderful things in terms of for our community and for those in need in our community. And so they were celebrating 50 years. I thought it's lovely. I know that recently we went to, and it was mentioned even St. Clair Claiborne's 50th Jubilee. What I thought to myself is that our city was formed in 1969, and these were congregations being formed in 71 and 72. And so we have a wonderful faith-based community that does much, and so congratulations to them. And so lots of great things happening in Simi Valley, and that concludes my report.
I went to the Holocaust display, which was a rail car that was used to transport victims, I guess you should say, and during the Holocaust. And I think the important thing there, Councilmember Judge already talked about the event and how nice it was. There was two actual survivors, and so these gentlemen had to be in their 90s, and they spoke great. They're very clear, and it was great listening to them. I only wish that all of our youth could hear what those gentlemen went through, and because they put it in such a way that you understood that this was a horrible 4 or 5 years that they had to go through while they were being moved from one camp to another. And the important thing is, I really think they're telling us the absolute truth when they said, get your tickets now. It's not going to come to Simi Valley. It's a traveling exhibit, It'll be here in March? March 24th, thank you. And it's highly recommended that you buy your tickets ASAP because they sell out and become very, very difficult to get, if at all. So Reagan Library, I'm sure it'd be on their website, and go on there and buy them. And if the date doesn't work out for you, I bet you $100 you could sell those tickets quite easily. I too attended the Veterans Day celebration, and I hope I'm saying it right because I know Mike feels this way. It's truly a celebration. It's not a memorial service because it's not Memorial Day. And I thought that was so very important to remember over and over again, that you're celebrating these millions of veterans that have fought for us for all these years. And there was a nice presentation. And
We had a World War II vet too.
yeah, oh, that's right. We had a World War II vet in attendance. But anyway, it was a very nice program, and it was a very nice celebration for the vets. That's really it, busy traveling and what have you. And tonight, unfortunately, the city had an event, if you want to call it that, a tragedy, and a young lady lost her life, and so we're going to adjourn tonight in memory of Rachel Casillo.
We still have 10B, Mayor.
10B, Your Honor. I mean, Mayor, 10B item.
Oh, okay. I just got a little ahead of myself. 10B.
I have 3 requests, Mayor, if I may.
Okay.
One is, both of them, actually 2 of them are from the Task Force for Homelessness. There was a motion that was passed to change the name from the Task Force for Homelessness to the Task Force for the Unhoused. So I'd like that agendized for the future.
I'll second that.
I think staff is already working on that.
Thank you, Councilman Judge. And the second request is, in order to work with Dignity Moves, the city would have to declare a housing or shelter crisis. California has provided a template, and this would allow us to provide safe sleeping sites for unhoused individuals and families. In partnership with a company like Dignity Moves, I'd like to explore that option. I don't know if that's an agenda item or just a request for the city manager.
We can look into what the process is.
Okay.
with that.
And Ventura County providers, including Samaritan Center, did express a willingness and to work with, to be service providers. And my third request is to agendize interview process for future appointment of planning commissioners.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I think that's a good conversation to be had. I would love it to still be, I think the discussion we had a year ago is, as you discuss it, I think it is the interviewing, vetting, application, all is good. I think but as you explore it, would like it still to be tied to to the council member once still has some responsibility to select. So I just want to throw that out there as you review the process.
Yeah, we'll bring the item.
But I agree.
We'll return the item back to the city council for consideration, and how you decide to move forward on that would be the council's decision.
I think it was always the intent that each council member would have to go out and get people to apply, and especially those that they wanted, but also at least hear from those that are interested in it.
Agreed.
Okay, is that it? Okay, I'll go back to the adjourn in memory of Rachel Castillo. And she was the victim of a homicide and here in town. And, keep her in your thoughts. I think she had 2 children. So,
Who has a sister, a mother, a daughter, a friend,
okay.
and she does leave behind 2 young children.
So we will adjourn in her memory and the thoughts of the others. Meeting's adjourned.